All right. So I'm going to let Miss Mattie actually get us started with our college admissions overview.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Zuckerbrow. Okay, so we're going to talk about just some tips and recommendations to get started. So one thing that's really important that we talk about in senior year is using the separate email, right? So we want you to have a personal or professional email that you're going to use for all school related things. So whether that is designating an email that you already have, or starting a brand new email just for college application stuff or for senior year related school stuff is good to have. Okay. Using a Google Drive. Yes, obviously we want to use a Google Drive to store all of our drafts and stuff. We don't want to just type all of our essays directly into the application because we don't know, again, if the application might accidentally delete them while we're working on it. So we want to work on our writing on separate Google Docs to make sure that we're keeping those stored in a safe place. Also, we want to make sure that we're using a tracking sheet because you're going to have so many different portals that you're making accounts in using different passwords. And so we want to make sure that you're keeping track of all of your stuff in one sheet so that, again, that you don't get locked out of your accounts because that can be really frustrating as well during the process. So we do have a QR code for there. It's a really great tracking sheet for college accounts and stuff and for keeping track of passwords. All right.
And we will share the slides out after, so you'll have all the links that are in the presentation.
Perfect. All right, so first we're going to talk about the public California State Universities. These are the CSUs. So the CSUs, really cool system. They got 23 campuses in California. Some are very, very competitive, others not so much. You do really want to complete your A through G courses with a C- or better. With a minimum 2.5 GPA. Now, the minimum 2.5 GPA will get you into certain CSU systems, into certain campuses, but there are many campuses that are very impacted that require a much higher GPA. For instance, Cal Poly SLO, San Diego State, Long Beach, those can be very competitive, especially in certain programs or majors. So you don't want to think, oh, as long as I have a 2.5, I'm good for the CSUs, because again, some are very competitive or impacted, meaning that they have way more applications than seats available in their programs at this point in time. Some students will be considered with a lower GPA below 2.5 in that 2.0, 2.49 range. Again, if the campus is not impacted. So say you're trying to get into Cal State East Bay for one of their majors that isn't impacted and maybe fall a little bit short of that 2.5 GPA. Cal State East Bay wants you to still consider going there because, again, if you are in the local area and the major you're applying for is not impacted, then that is still an option for you, okay? Many CSUs will use supplemental factors, okay, for students who live outside. So if you're not in that local area, they might see, again, if you're holding down a job, if you have some extracurricular work that you're doing, or spending hours outside of school doing things. Supplemental factors are also include the number of GPA, your GPA, in the number of A through G courses above the minimum number. So again, when you go above and beyond in your classes that little bit, take that extra AP class, that really does give you an edge into the CSU system, especially those that are more competitive. All right. All right, so information and materials you need for the application. So the application opens, I believe it's October 1st. It's still October 1st for the CSU. Okay, so that is the date that they're going to open. Okay, so what you'll need for that application is they're going to have these four kind of quadrants, these four bubbles on the CSU application. One will be your personal information, right? So again, that's going to be pretty straightforward. They will ask for your social security number, so you'll need to know that if you do have one, your citizenship status, and obviously you will need to have a credit card or PayPal account to make the payment for the applications. You will want to do a quadrant on academic history, so you'll be reporting using your unofficial transcript, looking off Aries, you'll be reporting your grades directly into the application. And so that can be a little bit of a tedious part. If you need access to your unofficial transcript, we can always send you a PDF copy through the College and Career Center, or you can look off of your Aries account and just compare back and forth with the application. What else? Let's see. Annual income, they are going to ask for your parents' income, so that's something that you are going to need to know. And the CSU system does offer an application for what's called EOP, and that is for low-income and first-generation students. That is an opt-in program. So if you are a first-gen low-income student and believe that you qualify, EOP is an excellent program. They can help provide you book stipends and all sorts of cool things to kind of help you get integrated into the system. So again, if you do want to apply for EOP, you will be able to do that through the CSU system as well. And yeah. All right, Ms. Zuckerbrow, anything to add for that?
And then there is this fourth quadrant program materials, and that one, it depends on which campus and which program you're applying to. So you may need something here, you may not. If it shows white like this, there's nothing, but if it shows red, then you have something to do. And so, for example, an art program, you may need to upload a portfolio. A nursing program, you may need to do a letter of rec, and that would go there. But otherwise, everything else is as is. And then for the academic history, one important thing is to include your 12th grade classes. So when you're applying to all your colleges, you're going to tell them what classes you're taking in 12th grade, even though you don't have grades yet. We saw several seniors not get admitted because they left out their 12th grade classes, and therefore they weren't meeting their A through Gs, and they had to appeal. So make sure you include your 12th grade.
All right, UC system. Ms. Zuckerbrow, you want to take that one?
Sure. So for the UCs, they are intended to be for the upper percent of students, and so they are more selective than the CSU campuses. There are 9 undergraduate campuses. These schools are mostly big and competitive. So you need a minimum 3.0 GPA. However, most of the campuses have average GPAs for their admitted students way higher than 3.0. So that's not to say if you have a 3.0, 3.1, 3.2, you shouldn't apply, but you're definitely going to need to make sure your PIQs are good and that you're providing a lot of information. So you'll definitely want to come talk to us about your applications. They do use a comprehensive review process. So they are going to look at other factors. They're going to look at challenges you have in your life, challenges you've overcome, or successes you've had. They're going to look at what you're doing outside of class, so not just your grades. Do you take on leadership positions? Have you done college classes? Have you joined any sports or clubs? Do you volunteer? Do you have to take care of your siblings every day after school? So they're going to take everything into review. For the application, it looks a little different than the CSU app. It doesn't have the 4 quadrants. It'll have a little menu on the right-hand side here. Initially, you're going to first pick at least one campus to apply to, and you'll pick the campus and the major, and then you'll get into the application that looks like this, where there's a little side menu on the right. And again, it's going to first start with the About You, which is that personal information, your campuses and majors that you want to apply to, your academic history, and again, you're going to enter all your A through G classes from 9th grade on. Test scores if you have them. So like if you've already taken some AP classes and you took the AP tests this year, then you're going to enter your AP scores so they can see those. And then activities and awards, you'll have 20 slots to list different extracurricular activities or awards. And again, that includes, taking care of your siblings at home. That includes clubs, sports, volunteering, part-time job, dual enrollment, and anything that you do outside of class. You are going to have to write your PIQs, your personal insight questions. We'll talk about that. You're going to write them separately in a Google Doc, and then you're going to copy and paste them here. Just like with the CSU app, you do want to put your parents' income so you can see if you qualify for a fee waiver. UCs also have EOP, but because you're already writing your PIQs, they already have, and your extracurriculars, they have a lot of info about you. So there's not separate like essay questions for EOP like in the CSU app. So you basically can just say, yes, I want to apply for EOP. You just have to explain why you want to or why you would qualify for it. Just a reminder, so we keep mentioning A through G, and hopefully you all know what that is by now, but for CSU and UC, you do need to talk to make sure you're getting all of your A through Gs, and even above the minimum, right? You want to try to be getting more than the minimum A through Gs. And it doesn't have to be more than the minimum in every area. It could be in, one or two of the areas or three of the areas. So just make sure you're hitting all those, right? The 3 years or more of math, at least integrated 3 or higher. Make sure you're getting your 2 different sciences with a lab. You do need at least 2 years of a language other than English, which is not required for graduation, but it is for A through G. The college prep elective can be anything. It can be an extra of A through F, or it can be something else like psychology or what else do we offer here? Med careers. A lot of our CTE classes fit G, like auto. So if you think that it doesn't fit somewhere else, it probably fits area G. Otherwise, if you're like, I don't know if I have an area G, you probably do. It's an extra from one of the others. Do you want to take it on, Ms. Mattie?
Absolutely. So public out-of-state colleges. So these are schools that are in other states. They have varying admissions criteria, right? So you could go to Michigan State, out of state, University of Oregon. There's so many different colleges around the country to choose from, right? Out of state tuition does vary. It can be very expensive, obviously, because you are coming out of California. Being a California student, California schools are going to give you those lower prices. Coming from out of state, it is going to be a little bit more challenging tuition-wise. But we do have programs such as the WUI, the Western Undergraduate Exchange, which does offer lower tuition for California students at specific schools along the West Coast. And so that could make it easier to go to a school like University of Oregon or Washington State, something that is a school that does participate in WUI. Applying, so some schools will use Common App. Common App is really the most common that we use. Some use Coalition App. Here at this school, we mostly just use the Common App unless there's a school on the that is only on Coalition App. And some schools do require their own application. So it does just vary. You can look on the school's website about admissions, and that'll usually tell you what application to use, or you can use Common App or Coalition to search out the schools and see if they're part of those lists.
And I know that some students are interested in schools in Hawaii based on when you guys RSVP'd for today. So some of the schools in Hawaii are part of WUI where you can get that lower tuition, and we've definitely had students go there before. So we would just need to look into which one would be the best fit for you, and which ones do take advantage of the WUI to get that lower cost for you. And then you could also look on the Common App website to see the list of all the schools that use that application.
Awesome. All right, and then we have private colleges and universities, again, with varying admissions and acceptance rates. Private colleges, they do cost more money, but they are flexible. So the private colleges are very cool because they are not bound by certain, the government standards. They can actually give you like a full ride or on a merit-based scholarship. Not all their scholarships are need-based or financial, based on how much your parents make. Some are based on your GPA, your extracurricular activities, or just overall that school wanting you to attend there. So yes, while it can be more expensive, they do have a lot more freedom and flexibility with financial aid, which can make it, very much worth your money to go. So private colleges do have essays, a little bit different from the PIQs and the UC. Instead of the 4 short essays, usually you will write a personal statement for the Common App. So private colleges and universities are accessed through the Common App, and you will write a personal statement, usually about 650 to 750 words. And so students will write about, various things they're interested in, what they want to do for their career, but that is really kind of the hub, the capstone kind of the private college application. Applying to schools, yes, you'll use Common App or Coalition. Others will have their own, same as the out-of-state colleges. The cool thing about private colleges too is that they are very different in size. You have small schools like St. Mary's that has, fewer students than Castro Valley, which is pretty cool. If you want to transition to a school that's even smaller than Castro Valley, that would be a great option. And then we also have schools like USC that has over 25,000. So, I mean, you can go to a big private college that's, large and prestigious. You can go to like a very, very small liberal arts college where, again, you're going to have that really smaller class size. So again, it kind of depends on what you're interested in. All right, so liberal arts colleges versus universities. So a liberal arts college is a school that'll offer you a four-year degree, and it's based on general liberal arts education. Okay, so I can't really see that text. They focus on well-rounded education, right? And they're typically smaller. So again, the liberal arts colleges tend to be those more, seminar style, a lot of group discussion, a lot of small groups and work where the teacher, again, is going to know your name in class. It's going to feel very, very much like kind of like a family. And those liberal arts colleges really do have that kind of camaraderie, right? There is less competitiveness in terms of getting spots because liberal arts colleges, again, they kind of focus on that group, that communal research. And then sometimes they are described as mini high schools because gossip spreads, right? They're small. And so they kind of do have that high school feel, but again, it's a really nice transition point because again, you get a lot of time to explore and a lot of space to kind of be yourself in class and have a teacher that knows your name, which is pretty awesome. Whereas in a university, you're in those large lecture classes, right? You might have a class that's 200 people. And, and some people really gravitate towards that, being that one of 200, being able to shine in a class like that, or the competitive nature of doing well in a class with that many people. So those do tend to be a little bit more competitive. Yeah. And again, there's more anonymity on campus, which some people prefer. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
So there are also HBCUs, and so these are kind of their own category, but also they fall into some of the other categories. Some of them are private schools, some are public, and most of them are in the South or on the East Coast. And they do have the Common Black College app where you can apply to about 50 something of the schools for just one fee. And some of them are on the regular Common App, such as Howard University. And then some are more competitive than others. And so also a lot of them offer a lot of scholarships, depending on your grades. And for scholarships for HBCUs, you do want to take SAT or ACT. Every February, the Black College Expo in Oakland, some of the HBCUs offer on-the-spot admissions. So if you are interested in that, make sure to join when we go in February. It's on a Saturday. Yeah. So there's some different types of applications. When you're applying to private or out-of-state schools, you might see different deadlines. It might say early decision or early action. Early decision and early action both have earlier deadlines, but early decision is binding, and usually you can only select it from one school. You need to read the stipulations for the schools you're applying to. And so what binding means is that if you get in, you're going there. Some of the schools have a caveat that if you don't get enough financial aid, you can back out. So you really need to read their early decision agreement and see, like, is it binding no matter what, or is it binding dependent on me getting enough financial aid? Early action is non-binding. So if you want to apply early, get it done with, have a good shot, possibly a better shot at getting in, because, some of the schools, they have a higher percentage of admission for their early action. You also find out sooner, and you have two opportunities, because if you don't get in, you might not get a flat out rejection, you might get deferred to regular decision. So early action's a great choice if it's one of your top choice schools. Those deadlines are either November 1st, November 15th, typically. There's also single choice early action, is where it's non-binding, but that school says you can only do early action with us and not with any other school. And then there's regular decision, and those deadlines are going to vary: December, January, February, March. And some schools don't have early action, but have a priority deadline. They have a priority deadline. You want to hit that deadline, because the most scholarship opportunities are by the priority deadline. So they may say priority deadline January 15th. And then after that, they still take applications through March, April, whatever, but you want to hit the priority deadlines. For types of admissions, you might see a school that says rolling admissions. They may not have a specific deadline, or even if they do have a deadline, they still may say they're rolling admissions, where they admit on an ongoing basis. So the sooner you apply, the better. But that also means that you can apply later too, because they don't have a specific deadline. But they review the applications as they come in, versus the one drop, where all the students are reviewed after that final deadline. So that everyone who applies for early action by November 15th gets reviewed after November 15th. Everyone who applies for regular decision by the February 1st deadline, they get reviewed together after February 1st, and then they all get notified about the same time. All right, so SAT and ACT. Test scores are not being used for CSUs and UCs. So if you are only applying to CSUs and UCs, you do not need to take the SAT or ACT. But if you are considering private and out-of-state schools, you may want to take the test. So many schools are test optional. So example for USC, you can indicate if you're going to submit scores or not. You will not be penalized or put at a disadvantage if you choose not to submit for test optional school. Some private and out-of-state colleges have gone back to requiring the SAT or ACT. So during the height of the pandemic, they did not require them, but some of them, starting with the class that just graduated, they went back to requiring them. For example, HBCUs are still asking for them in order to grant scholarships. MIT is requiring the SAT or ACT. Georgia Tech. Georgetown is saying that they require it, but they are saying that if you're not able to test, you can apply without, except at this point, there's enough test locations that are back open that you're probably going to have to if you're applying to Georgetown. So you really need to check if you are applying for private or out-of-state schools, if they're requiring it or not. These are just some examples. There could be others. If you do plan to test, you will sign up on the SAT website or the ACT website. And these are the test dates coming up. So for SAT, there's an August test date. So it's near the start of school. Maybe, your schoolwork is not going to be ramped up yet. It's like third week of school. You do need to register by the end of July. There's a test date in October, November, December. They're all Saturdays. ACT, there's a test date September, October, and December. And then these are the registration deadlines. There is a late registration deadline for both, but then there's a late fee. And if you cannot afford the SAT or ACT because there is a cost to taking that test, see me for a fee waiver. Send me an email and we can get you a fee waiver. Oh, shoot. There are some slides on letters of recommendation later on. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. question. Are there any questions at this point to what we've been talking about?
You can ask them on the chat or you can unmute yourself.
Any questions about what we've been talking about? Will the SATs be offered at school? So we never have offered the SAT at our school. The SAT, the nearest location used to be Hayward High, but I don't know that they're offering it there anymore. There's some locations in Oakland, Union City. Cal State East Bay usually offers the ACT. So you just have to see, like, when you sign up, the sooner you sign up, the more test centers will still have spots. The closer to the deadline, less locations will have spots because they fill up. We offer the PSAT every year, but you guys already are done with that. How do you know which ones to take? Basically, try both. And you don't have to try both, like go pay for both. There's a lot of websites that will offer free practice tests. So you can just go on the ACT website or the SAT website to do a free practice test. You can also use test prep services like Princeton Review, Kaplan, etc. They usually offer free one free practice test. And when they offer it, it's like timed. So they do either in person or virtual, but it's timed just like the test is, so that you can practice actually how it would be taking the test versus if you do a practice test on your own. So you can just try them out, see what you like better. The SAT is just math and then reading and then English/grammar. The ACT also has a science section. So the science section, it'll give you a little experiment that took place, or it'll just give you a little background info, and then it asks you questions about it. So it's not just like random science questions. They do pose like a situation, an experiment, or something like that. So there is a little background info that you're working off of, but you have to be familiar with like terms and things like that. So I just recommend trying both. And on our website, under the testing page, there are links to all the different like help that I was just mentioning, like Princeton Review and whatnot. Any other questions? Merit scholarships, the requirements vary by school. So some schools have like different levels of merit scholarships. So like St. Mary's, if you look on their website at their merit scholarships, you know, for like a 3.5, you get this. For a 3.0, you get this. Like there's different levels of scholarships, and it's going to vary school to school. So, and then in terms of outside scholarships, again, it's going to vary. We have a lot of scholarships posted on our scholarships page that you can look at. There's a spreadsheet, so you can look at the ones from this past year. A lot of them are going to be the same for you guys for next year, and you can look at what the requirements were. Other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on. As we get ready to move on to the next section, I would love for everyone, if you haven't been doing this already, maybe you are because you know your cameras are on, to stand up and take a little stretch break. So I need to stretch real quick. So I'm going to just stand up and stretch real quick. I've been sitting this whole time. So if you've been sitting this whole time, please stand up and take a little stretch break real quick. Move your legs around a little. All right. All right, we're going to talk about letters of refraction in a little bit. We're going to move on to exploring your values and interests. Mm-hmm. So why look at values and interests? It'll help you with your application because you're going to need to list your activities and talk about yourself. You're going to be sharing info about yourself. The schools want to know who you are. You're going to use that information in your personal statement and in your PIQs. The other reason to think about your values and interests is for your college search and selection. You want to find the schools that are the best fit for you. So that's why we're going to do this. All right, Miss Mattie, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. All right. So where do our values come from? Right? So our values are very influenced, obviously, by the people around us, right? People that are closest to us. Our values are hugely influenced by our families, right? And where we grow up, who we grow up around, our background, our culture, all the different experiences we have growing up can really shape, right, our values and what we gravitate towards as adults. So what are some groups that you are a part of or have influenced your value? Okay, so what we want to think about is like, who are those groups of people that have influenced our values, and what are some specific people in your life that have influenced your values? So you want to think and write down those people that are closest to you, just to be aware of, again, how you are being shaped, right, as you grow into adulthood. So we want to write down some groups that you're a part of that have influenced your values. So this can be anybody around you that has influenced the way you think, or maybe the things that you want out of life, or the things that you find interesting or gravitate towards. Those are your values, right? What things are important to you and who influences that. So on the cork board, you can write, anything. Where do your values come from? Does it come from your parents, friends, maybe? Are you part of a church group? Are you part of any extracurricular stuff? Maybe some sports, maybe you take music lessons, there's all sorts of different things. So let's go ahead and put up all those. Ooh, wow, we got some good ones. All right, family, friends, sports, parents. Yes. Let's keep writing on there. Again, who influences you, right? I love it. Your pets. Yeah, it's my guinea pigs very much influence how my day is going to go a lot of times. It's so true. So I very much value that. Yep, absolutely. I love this.
And if you don't want to put them on the corkboard to share, just write it down for yourself or have it in your mind. We want everyone to like think about this. So we'll take one more minute here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, looks like we're slowing down. Any last posts? Thank you all for those who shared. And again, if you don't want to share, just please write it down for yourself or have that in your mind. All right. So now that you thought about who or where your values have come from, we want you to write down, and again, if you don't want to post on the board, just think about it to yourself, write it down, 3 values that you have gained from the group. And it can be education related or not. It could be any values that you have. It could be about how you feel about the environment or about pets, like animals, right? So any values that you have gained from the groups listed, go ahead and put those down. So we'll take a few minutes for this. So I went ahead and added mine, and I see some others coming in. Thank you. And again, if you don't want to post it, just think about it for yourself. I started talking, I was still on Zoom. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up in Zoom once you know, since I think a lot of you are just keeping it for yourself, which is totally fine. So just give me the thumbs up on Zoom once you're done thinking about it or writing them down for yourself. Welcome to those just joining us. If you could please sign in, and we're just doing a quick activity about values. So we'll be going back to the Nearpod in a moment. We'll take one more minute here, everyone. All right, thank you to everyone who shared on the board here. And for those just joining, here's the link for the Nearpod. All right, so if you didn't write them down somewhere else yet, go ahead and write down those values. Well, if you only had them in your head or on the Nearpod, it'd be great if you could write them down, because we want you to just circle the top value from your list, or like write down your top value, just so you have that in mind. Okay, so we're gonna do another quick activity. This is going to help you think about what schools might be a good fit, but also help you come up with topics for your personal insight questions or your personal statement. So right now, write down 5 numbers from 1 to 94. Any 5 numbers. So go ahead and just write that down real quick so that you know which 5 questions, because we're making this random, so you don't pick which questions to answer. You're going to answer 5 random questions that I will share with you in a moment. So for now, just write down 5 random numbers between 1 and 94. You can just keep them for yourself, Eric, but that's fine that you put them there. No worries. Those are the ones you're going to answer. So everyone should have 5 numbers written down for themselves. Oh, I can't link it from here. Shoot, hold on. Let me get the link, everyone. Okay. All right. Here is the document. I'm putting it into the chat. So go ahead and open that up. Hopefully I have the settings right. I'm going to check that it's viewable. Okay, yeah, I see people popping in. Cool. So, oh, you need to be on CVUSD. In case any of you are on a personal email, let me change that access. Anyone with the link. Okay, so go ahead and open it, and you're going to answer for yourself the 5 numbers that you wrote down. So if you wrote down 23, 59, etc., those are the ones you're going to answer. So we're going to take 5 minutes for this. Yeah. How do I start? Start. Oh. This is a better one. Maybe. All right, you guys got a few extra seconds because it took me a while to get the timer up. You have 5 minutes to answer your 5 questions. And I will be right back. If you finished your 5 questions, feel free to look at more and do a few more, because will just help you as we go along today. If you have not signed in yet, there's the link again for the sign in. You have about a minute left. All right, go ahead and wrap up your questions. So again, these will be useful as we move along here today. So we're going to talk about creating your college list. We want you to choose the college that is the best fit for you. So, you know, UC Berkeley, great school, not the best fit for everyone. So you don't want to just go, well, I had to go to UC Berkeley because it's a good school. That's not the reason to go. So you want to think about what are your goals, your interests, what's most important to you, and what you want to get out of college. Miss Mattie, would you like to take some slides?
Yes, absolutely. So you really want to make the college work for you, right? You're the one who's paying the money to be there. So you really want to get like everything you can out of that education, right? So when you're researching a college, there's a lot of things you want to consider. Admissions requirements being the main one, right? So top of the list, admissions requirements. If I have below a 3.0, I'm not going to apply to a UC campus, right? Because if I apply to a UC campus and I'm below their 3.0 minimum, I'm not going to get accepted. Okay, and so that's a really important thing to look at. Admissions requirements in terms of the GPA, in terms of the A through G classes, so on and so forth. You also want to look at size of campus. I've talked a lot about this already. Do you want to be in a small class where the professor knows your name, or do you want to be in a class of like 150 people and have that anonymity, right? Campus life and activities. There's so much to do on campuses, and they're all very different. So you want to look at like, what type of activities are there to do? What type of groups are there to join? Are there cool learning communities? What is the counseling like there? Could I get help planning my classes if I needed help? So again, you want to consider that too. Geographic location is a really big one that I feel like a lot of students don't think about. You really want to think about if you're ready to move away from home and how far away from home that you want to be, right? I think a lot of students think about applying to all these out-of-state schools, but that is going to be you moving on your own for 4 years. And so I think you really got to consider what your life is going to look like. Again, you guys are just turning 18, becoming adults. So that's really important. Financial costs, obviously, we want to consider how much the campus is going to cost. A UC or a private college is going to be much more expensive than going to a CSU or a community college. Housing availability, obviously, if you want to live in a dorm, you got to check, how much does that cost? How much, do they require you to live on campus for the first year? Some colleges do require students to live on campus for their first year. And then overall, the feel of the campus, right? You want to physically go there if you can. That is always priority number one. Physically go, be on the campus, and see if you could see yourself there. Does it feel right? Right? Because you're going to spend the next 4 years of your life there. So it is very important to make sure that you are on a campus where you feel safe, where you feel integrated, and you feel like you can thrive for the next 4 years.
And I just want to add about the geographic location. The other thing to think about too is the weather. You also may not think about that when you're applying places, but if you're applying to schools in Chicago, Boston, even New York, right? They have winters. They have snow. You may have to walk to class in the snow all bundled up, right? So, which is fine. Some people are like, yeah, I don't care what the weather's like. It doesn't matter to me. But if you are affected by the weather, mentally, personally, that could affect how you do at school. So you want to just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very important. All right, so you want to select some schools and you want to have a balance of the type of schools that you're selecting, okay? And so we like to categorize the college list into 3 different areas, right? So we have reach schools, target schools, and likely schools. So what we want to do is definitely have you apply to a couple of those reach schools. So reach school is like a school that the application profile or the average is a little bit higher than what you have, right? And that could be GPA, that can be extracurriculars. For instance, UC Berkeley, UCLA, those are schools that, I mean, admit only really the top echelon of students and are very selective, right? And so I would say those schools are a reach for anyone because you don't know when you're applying to that. Even if you're above a 4.0 and you've done all this incredible stuff, it is still a very selective and holistic process that really depends on the context of your life, where you've come from, and where you want to go. So we definitely encourage, again, if you've always wanted to apply to Berkeley or UCLA or Stanford, Harvard, please do. Just don't make that your entire list, right? We want to make sure we have a small amount of reach schools, right? And then we want to have the main amount being our target schools right there in the middle. Target's going to be like, boom, right on that, like that graphic we got going on there with the arrow, right where you think, okay, I have a decent chance of getting in here, okay? So again, if you do a lot of extracurriculars and you have, a 3.0 and you're like, I want to go to Cal State East Bay, and normally they require a 2.5, but you have a little bit above that and feel like you could be a good shot for the program, that would be more of a target school. Okay, and then the likely schools are the schools that you definitely have a shot at, you will be able to go to if you absolutely need to. A lot of students, for instance, will apply to a community college as a backup option because maybe they want to go to a school that's very close to home, so they want to go to Berkeley or East Bay, but they do also want to have that JC just in case, right? That junior college. All right.
And just for the likely schools, those non-impacted CSU campuses, if you're applying to a non-impacted program and you meet the minimum requirements and you keep those minimum requirements all senior year, you're going to get in, and we can help you. We can let you know which ones those are when it comes to application time.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Oh, do you want to go for this?
Oh, no, go ahead.
All right, awesome. So when you create your college list, you want to start with the initial list of schools, right? So, start with about 12 to 15. Anything beyond that is going to be I would advise too much. I mean, if once you get past 15 schools, it's kind of ridiculous. And you want to really use your time efficiently in senior year because, again, it's not just going to be doing the college application process, but also you're going to have a lot of stuff going on with your regular senior year activities and your schoolwork. So you want to start with that initial list, about 12 to 15 schools, and you want to divide the list up equally. So again, you have those, maybe 3 or 4 reach schools in your future. You have maybe the 4 or 5 target schools that you feel like you really have a good shot at, and then maybe those 3 or 4 likely schools. Okay, so again, you just want to make sure that your list is balanced. So that it gives you an option to really go anywhere depending on what happens, because a lot of times it's not predictable, right? Especially with the schools that are reach schools, it is hard to know year by year which programs are going to be impacted, which schools are going to be more impacted, so it can be unpredictable, which is why we always want you to have a nice balance of reach, target, and likely. All right, so one way that you can really, really help get started is start researching, right? Go on the school's websites. A lot of the schools now have virtual tours, especially since COVID. They'll have like a virtual tour of all the different departments of the school. Check that out. Check out videos. A lot of campuses now have social media stuff that like the younger generation is into, TikToks and Instagram feeds. And so get really involved on social media too, because a lot of times that's where they post a lot of really important info for students that they want you guys to see. So connecting on social media is a great way. And it is recommended that, again, you narrow down to not more than a dozen colleges, okay? Because, again, we want to make sure that you are putting your time efficiently into not just getting a large list going, but making sure that your materials for the application are up to par in terms of your writing, right, and showcasing your abilities. So these are a couple activities. I believe we're gonna not do these today, but these are some really cool values assessments, again, where you can kind of continue to explore your own values and figure out exactly what you want to look for in a college. You know, for instance, maybe you really figure out through looking, you know, at your situation that you do want to need a college that's affordable, or maybe you discover you do need a college that's close to home. Or, you know, maybe on the opposite, you discover, you know, I do want to go away. I do want to start kind of a new chapter. I do want to try living in a new state. So again, these kind of activities are cool to do, and I do suggest you doing them on your own this summer, because it'll help you kind of get a feel for what you might be looking for in a college as you start creating that list. All right, searching and tracking tools. So there's all sorts of college search websites. Big Future and College Greenlight are great. And then we do have a college planning tracker. It's one of my personal favorites. It has really cool sections for reach, target, and likely schools, where you can, again, categorize and then research each campus in terms of, you know, campus size, campus cost, location, what my major would be at that school. And so again, just having an Excel spreadsheet, a really cool tracking sheet to keep track of everything on, is highly encouraged. Again, because you're not just doing this senior year, you are doing so many other activities that we want to, again, have kind of like a special document to keep all of our college stuff contained.
I'm gonna actually go ahead and just show you all the tracker real quick.
Awesome.
And again, we are gonna share these slides with you after today. And we'll share the actual like Google Slides that have all the links. All right, are you able to see the tracker?
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's probably real small, make it a little bigger. So this first tab of the tracker, oh, it's still doing its thing. It's being a little slow. Okay, the first tab of the tracker here is, ooh, it's like being weird. So the first tab of the tracker here is for your login information. So as you create all these different logins for these different sites, you want to keep track. So in the fall, when you do your UC app, your CSU, or your Common App, or your CCC apply for community college, right? Along the way, you may already have a College Board account, right? You can put that here. If it's a scholarship website such as FastWeb, you know, or if it's some other website, right? List your usernames so you don't forget which username you used. Give yourself a password hint. If it was your usual password, if you had to add an exclamation point because you had to add a symbol. I don't recommend actually listing your password unless you keep this document somewhere super secure, but you can give yourself a hint so you can try to remember it. The email used hopefully should be that same email like Miss Mattie said earlier, right? That one professional email. But if you do use different emails, maybe you already created your College Board account with a different email, you can keep track here. In the fall, you'll use this financial aid section as well. And then again, in the fall, after you apply, you're going to also get a portal from each of the schools you apply to, and you can keep track of that here. The second tab is where you're going to start tracking the schools you're interested in. So as you do the virtual tours or the in-person tours, like what Miss Mattie was just talking about, you're going to put the schools in here and why you're interested in them, what you like about them, the majors you're interested in, the setting, the location, maybe the number of students, so you know the size of the school. The average GPA, super important, so you know where you fall and you can list it in reach, target, or likely. The graduation rate is good to know, and the freshman retention, how many people stay, what's the cost, how many grants and scholarships do most people get, the average class size, if that's important to you, student faculty ratio, if you want most of your classes taught by faculty and not by graduate students, what's the SAT status, right? That for UCCSU, we know what that is, but for your private out of state, that's important to know. For your private and out of state, are you going to apply regular early, right? So you don't necessarily need all these columns. You can change it around once you make your own copy of this document. You also don't need to keep the reach target likely, but it's good to organize it that way. And if you're not sure where a school falls, when we come back in August, we can help you with that. And then again, this will also help you track the deadlines too. And then there's a scholarship tracker. So as you start looking into scholarships, if you find ones that you want to apply to, put them here, the deadline, whatever information about it. You can give yourself your own deadline. You can put that you submitted it so you can keep track if you submitted it or not. And then if you got it back, if there's any follow-up. If you don't like this tracker, there are on this last tab some other college tracker options, so you can look at these and find the one that you like best, because each person organizes things differently. So if the one that we have for you doesn't work, you can look at some of these other ones. This one here, it has a bunch of things down the first column here, like deadlines and then academics and then cost, right? Maybe it's also important to you for the activities in student life. So here, extracurriculars, Greek life, study abroad, and then some, miscellaneous to-do check boxes for yourself. And then, school 1, 2, 3, etc. So you could make a copy of this and use this as your tracker. So, there's different options that you can use. All right, so as you get ready for college applications, you're going to want to do a brag sheet. So the brag sheet, and let me grab the brag sheet link. And we have a couple more slides before our break here, so we're almost at our break. But the brag sheet is going to be used for several things. It's for you to organize everything and prepare for your PIQs, you're writing your activities and honors into your application for UC and private schools. And then you may need it later, even if you don't need letters of rec, you may need it later for scholarship recommendations. So we really do recommend that all students do a brag sheet. So what the brag sheet looks like, and you can get it from that URL that I had there on the screen, or you can get it from our website at any time. What it looks like is this. You'll want to make a copy of it, and when you make the copy, you'll want to just get rid of all that front part in the title and put your last name, first name. It says here to get rid of everything in red, or to change everything in red, delete it and put your own info. This is something you're going to give to teachers and your counselor for writing letters of rec. But again, if you're not sure if you need a letter of rec, it's still good to do it. And I'll show you why. So here in the fall, you'll be able to put the schools you're applying to, the deadline, and how you're applying. Your senior year schedule. If you are getting a letter of rec, and you're asking a junior year teacher, they can't see your schedule. They want to know what you're taking senior year. So list that. Activities. This is the part you can start working on now over the summer, because you're going to need this for your UC application and then for your private and out-of-state schools, whether it's Common App, Coalition App, their own app. They want to know your activities that you've participated in. Again, this can be like any of these types of things: tutoring, clubs, community service, sports, etc. And you're going to fill this in so that you have that ready for the applications. Awards you've received. if you have any. We don't give a lot of awards out here at our high school, so you might not have a lot, but you might have some athletic scholarship or awards. Maybe you got an African American Achievement Award. Maybe you got an award in one of your classes. The Q&A part, this is the part that will help you to prepare for your PIQs. It will also help your teachers if you do ask for letters of rec. It will help your counselor if you ask for a letter of rec. So there's some questions here, and you fill out what you feel comfortable and what you want them to know as they write. They might not include the information specifically, but it may give your recommender some background info to help. If you're asking teachers for letters of rec, this is the important part. You want to tell them some specific things to include for that class. So if you're asking your APUSH teacher, maybe you're gonna talk about how you always led your group when you had group projects and you took on leadership, or how you wrote some amazing essays that your teacher always like commented on how great they were. Or maybe you in your English class got up and made a great presentation, or you always did well in Socratic seminars, or whatever it is that you want them to highlight, or if you contributed to the class, anything like that. You want to put that there so that they make sure to include that. And then if there's anything else you want them to know. So again, the brag sheet is used in different purposes, and one of those is for letters of rec. You do not need letters of rec for CSUs or UCs, but private and out-of-state schools typically require 1 or 2 recommendations from teachers. You will often have the option to submit an additional recommendation as well from a coach, a mentor, your pastor at church. So if you have that option, and if there's someone that you do want to write, you can, if they ask for it, or if they allow you to submit that. Your letters of rec are to add another dimension to your application. So you're gonna wanna pick someone that knows you well and or is excited about you. You're gonna ask in August or September. If you already asked now, that's totally fine. But as soon as we get back in the fall, if you know you're applying to a private or out-of-state school, you wanna ask your teacher. Oh, I did put a little star here. Some programs, for example, the Cal State Fullerton nursing program, may ask for a letter of rec. And then UC Berkeley, after you apply, they may send you an email saying, hey, we're inviting you to submit 1 or 2 letters of recommendation. You only submit them if they ask. So you're not going to ask teachers ahead of time unless you get asked. Who should you ask? You want to select a teacher most likely from 11th grade, maybe someone in 12th grade if you've had them before, or if it's later in the school year, if you're applying somewhere that's due in February, by that point they'll know you better. But if you're applying early, those November deadlines, it's most likely going to be a junior year teacher. You don't want to pick 9th or 10th grade. You didn't have as much schooling yet, and they may not remember, you as well. So you really want to focus on 11th grade if you can. If you need to pick someone from 9th or 10th grade, that's fine. Come and talk to me about it. If you're applying for a STEM or nursing major, you should have at least 1 letter from a science or math teacher. Some schools may say that it needs to come from a core subject area. So that would be English, social studies, science, math, maybe even world language, but not your VAPA or your CTE. If you are applying for a visual performing arts program, definitely ask your art teacher, your music teacher, your drama teacher, right? Whatever that is. It's also often good if at least one of them can talk about your writing. So your English or history teacher is always a good person to ask. And then, like I said, some of the schools give you the option to submit an additional recommendation. So if you want them to talk about you and show a different part of who you are. Now, for most of the schools, most private and out of state, your counselor needs to submit a school report. That includes your transcript. That includes saying how competitive your classes were. Not all schools require a letter of recommendation by the counselor, but some do require it, so you need to ask your counselor. Others don't require it, but if you want your counselor to write you one to add that extra dimension, you can ask them as well. So we are a little over time. We were going to start our break at 11, but we're a little behind. So we are going to take a short break. But we can, if you need a break, go ahead and start now. If not, if you want, we can do a couple questions first if you have any questions on what we just went over on making your college list, on letters of rec, all of that. So are there any questions before we take our break? And if you haven't signed in yet, you can use the break to do so. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take a 15-minute break. Oh, whoops. All right. So go ahead and take a break, and then we will reconvene in 15 minutes, and I will stay on a couple more minutes to answer questions. So can you go to a CC and then transfer? Absolutely. There are higher transfer rates for the UCs than for a private school. So depending on the school, some private schools do not accept a lot of transfers. So for example, Stanford. Students who get into Stanford tend to stay at Stanford. The private schools, they get more money from you. So, you know, they have higher tuition. Even if you get grants and scholarships, you know, they get that money for the grant scholarships from donors. So they want students to come all 4 years. That being said, yes, there are students who absolutely transfer from community college to a private school, including Stanford. But I'm just putting it out there that for transfer, the UC transfer rate is much higher than private school transfer rate, depending on the private school. But it's definitely a possibility. And for all kinds of transfer, whether it's to a UC, CSU, or private school, they're only looking at your community college grades if you're applying after your 2 years. So if you go to community college for at least 2 years, then they're only going to look at community college grades. So if you feel like right now your grades are not where you want them to be for the schools you want to go to, then community college and transfer is a great option, because then you get a chance to start over. That option's always going to be there. Oh, I'll have to go get water during the break. That option's always going to be there. So we recommend that you still apply to some 4-year schools in the fall. And then in the spring, after you find out where you got admitted, then you can decide to go to one of those schools or decide if you want to go to community college and transfer. We want you to have that option. Every year I have students who, you know, at least 1 or 2 who tell me, I wish I would have applied. You know, I thought I wanted to go to community college, but now that I see all my friends, you know, deciding where they're going and they're going away and they're going to 4-year, you know, I wish I had applied. So it's better to apply, even if it, you know, means spending all that time on your PIQs, and then in the end you still decide community college. That's totally great. It's better to apply and have all your options open. I am a huge advocate of community college, but I am a huge advocate of you having all your choices. So whether you're gonna, even right now, if you're like community college, I am like, great, that's a wonderful choice. Apply so that you have the option, and then it's your choice in the spring of whether you're going to go to that 4-year or whether you're going to go to that community college. Okay, we're going to take a break. We have about 11 minutes left in our break, so I'm going to turn off my camera here, and we'll see you back in a few minutes. Would love a few more thumbs up before I move on. All right. All right, so welcome back. We are going to talk about personal statements and PIQs. So the first thing we want you to do is to take out a piece of paper or your laptop, open up a Google Doc if that's your preferred method, and make a list. What do you want colleges to know about you? Think about things that make you unique, your interests, hobbies, clubs, sports, experiences, traits, cultural ethnic background, family, anything else. Also think about the values and interests from the activities we looked at earlier, from those 150 questions, the values that we had you post and think about earlier. So just write, don't think, just write about you. So just take a couple minutes now to write. As you write your list, some questions to ask yourself. What's special, unique, distinctive about you? What successes or failures have you had? Challenges? What details of your life have shaped or influenced your goals? And what might help the admissions committee better understand you or help set you apart from other applicants? Also, sometimes you're going to write about your career goals and the subject areas you're interested in. So what do you want to study? What are your goals? Have you had to overcome any challenges, obstacles? What skills do you possess? Just write down what your skills are. All right, so you should all have a list of things now that you wrote down or typed. You can keep thinking about that. What I want you to do is circle the top 4 things from your list that you want schools to know about. So look at your list. Hopefully you actually wrote a list and circle 4 things. And some of the things may go together, so you can like maybe pick 2 things and that'll be like one topic, and then, but you should end up with like 4 different kind of topics. Because if you're going to apply to the UC, you're going to write 4 different PIQs. So we want you to pick 4 different topics. So just do that for now. Forget about the other part on this slide. Just circle the top 4 things that you would want colleges to know about you. Once you've done that, pick one of those topics that you circled and write down a few sentences or ideas that you could write about related to that topic. So for example, on my list, I would have written down ultimate frisbee. And if this is me today, me in high school now, if this is me today, I would write down ultimate frisbee. And then some ideas about that. So I would write skills that I gained from ultimate frisbee include communication, or skills I gained from ultimate frisbee. I don't need to go into too much detail right now. We're just preparing to write. So the skills that I gained, the importance, why it's important to me, and also how I've taken it to the next level and now I coach. So those are the kind of things I would want to talk about related to ultimate frisbee in my life. So that's kind of what I want you to write about. So if you wrote down that you play tennis, right? Why is it important to you? What are your accomplishments? Or maybe you want to talk about a failure you had and how you overcame it with regards to tennis. What kind of person are you when you play tennis? Or what skills have you gained from it? And is it something you're going to continue in the future? Another idea might be, so me back in high school, I might have written about wanting to become a teacher. And I would write about why I want to be a teacher. And I would write about what experiences I've had that led me to that decision. So so the volunteer experiences that I did that led me there. I did tutoring. I helped kids with reading. I went to elementary school and taught them about like some job skill things like needs versus wants. It was through junior achievement. Anyway, volunteer, right? So you can kind of tie other things to like that one topic. So I want you to just spend a few more minutes here to just doing a little more writing. And for anyone who joined late, we started by just making a list of things about ourselves and then picking some of those things and then narrowing it down to one of those just to start doing some writing, just to get some ideas jotted down. You don't have to write full sentences right now, but just get some ideas jotted that you can write about and turn into a PIQ or personal statement. We're going to take 3 minutes for you all to keep writing. So take about 1 more minute to keep thinking about what you want to write about and do a little writing of ideas. All right. So we did not even look at the prompts yet because there's no best prompt. You want to tell the schools about yourself. So that's why we start with like brainstorming before we look at the prompts. Now we're going to take a look. So the Common App is a personal statement. As Ms. Mattie said earlier, this is a longer essay than your PIQs. The colleges want to know some basic things. Can you write well? Will you make contributions on the college campus and beyond? That's kind of the two things they're looking for. And are you providing context and additional information? So that's what the personal statement is really about, okay? It's your chance to write in your own words for them to really see who you are. So the Common App prompts, and they have not changed. You can just see they're right here in the little thing. I don't know why that link didn't work, but anyway, it says 22, 23, but next year is going to be the same. They haven't changed it. So these are the different prompts that you're going to have a chance to choose from. So if you are planning to use the Common App, so if you're applying to a private school or some of those out-of-state schools that use Common App, you're going to choose one of these personal statements. And so you're going to look at those topics that you wrote down, the ones you circled that are like most important for colleges to know about you. And then you're going to see which of these is the best fit. So for me, I was talking about ultimate frisbee and the things I learned, the skills I gained from it, and why it's important to me and how I coach. So for this, there's a couple areas I could fit this in potentially. Maybe in number 1. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that's so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. For me, that's ultimate frisbee. It's an interest, right? It's part of who I am. It's how I meet a lot of my friends, right? I kind of just like, yeah. And anyway, so it could fit for number 1. It could potentially also fit for number 5, depending on how I write about it. Maybe it was a period of personal growth, and that's how I came out of my shell, became more independent, became a better communicator, right? Maybe. I'm just throwing this out. So you look at your things that you want to tell them, and you find the best fit. Any questions about that? So for the Common App, it's a 650 word limit. You want to aim for at least 500 words. It is okay to have more or less, but you want to have around 500, maybe a little more. If you only have like 300 or 400 words for the personal statement, you probably didn't share enough information with them. So you want to be looking for that 500 word count. Some students go overboard and they have to then whittle it down. So, don't put too many don't put too much in it. You want to use some specific anecdotes though. So if I'm talking about, in my ultimate frisbee example, if I'm talking about the skills I gained, I want to use some specific examples of how I gained those skills and how I now use those skills. So when you're playing on an ultimate frisbee field, in order for my teammates to know what's going on and to better help my team, we need to communicate on the field with each other. Otherwise, we don't know what we're doing. We're dropping the disc. And so by playing, I gained a lot of good communication skills. Now I use those communication skills by being able to better communicate with colleagues, and I would want to put something specific in there. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let Miss Mattie talk about PIQs.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Zuckerbrow. So yeah, so the PIQs, there are going to be 8 prompts for you guys, okay? So because the PIQs are short, you really want to approach them like an interview, right? Because again, the UC system, they don't have a chance to sit down and interview you one-on-one. They don't really get a chance to meet you. The only time they get a chance to really get to know the student is through these personal insight questions. So they want to see like kind of the human side of the student in those PIQs, and that can really make or break your admissions in a lot of ways. This is, it's one part of the application that has nothing to do with your GPA, right? It could have to do with something GPA related if you'd like it to be, but it doesn't have to. It's really about your life and your experiences that you want the colleges to know. So they're perfect for telling about your achievements, right, and skills that you've learned. Sharing your values, right, too, is important to share with colleges. And so again, you really want to make sure that it focuses on that interview style, using those I statements, all right, thinking about what makes you you, right? You're just going to answer that question very blatantly and using those I and me statements, okay? So, and each of the PIQ prompts has the same weight. Like Ms. Zuckerbrow was saying, there's no best PIQ, same way that there's no best Common App prompt, right? I always say, think about the PIQs as like kind of the 4 quadrants of who you are, right? The 4 pieces of the pie that make you the person that you've become. And so really that's why you want to develop your ideas and get those lists of maybe kind of 4 distinct things about you first. And then we look at the prompts for PIQ and see again, which ones of those connect the most to the details that we already know about you. All right, so we are gonna pull up the prompts now.
So I'll just pull them up real quick. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You guys can look at these after, but again, hopefully during that little bit of writing time we just gave you before, you wrote some ideas down, and now you're going to find which of these 8 questions, best fit what you want to tell. So and on this page, they give you the prompt, and then they tell you some things to consider. So describe a leadership experience, and that could be formal, like an officer position, a captain position, but it can also be informal, where you took leadership in a group project. One is about how you express your creative side. Another has to do with your greatest talent or skill and how you've developed and demonstrated that. How you've taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or overcame an educational barrier. Describing the most significant challenge you faced and the steps you took to overcome it. How has it affected your academic achievement? And you want to talk about what did you learn from it that you're going to take moving forward? Think about an academic subject that inspires you and describe how you furthered this inside or outside the classroom. What have you done to make your school or community a better place? And then the last one's a little more open-ended, beyond what has already been shared in the application. What do you believe makes you a strong candidate? Remember that for both the personal statement and the personal statement for Common App, that's going to all your schools on Common App. Your PIQs, they're going to all the UCs. Just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then last thing about that is you want to make sure that they fall between 250 and 350 words. And I see a lot of students being like, I have to get to 350 or it's not perfect. It's not perfect until it's 350. And that is so much not true. There are amazing PIQs that are, 256 words, 260 words that are perfect. They do everything they need to do and say everything they need to say. That's very possible as well. So don't think that you have to like get a higher word count or it's going to be more strongly considered. No, as long as you land between 250 and 350 words and you feel like that you've expressed yourself accurately and you've given enough detail and described at least an anecdote about a situation to really, again, give that context, then you're good. You don't have to get to that 350. So I see a lot of students being like, oh, I just need 5 more words. I'm like, you don't, it's good. So just, wanted to mention that. So what are the PIQs versus an essay, right? So the PIQ, they want to get to know you better. Again, your experiences, your interests and ambitions, and the things that are special about you. You want a PIQ to be so detailed. I always say that your parent could read it and know that that PIQ is about you. Or a friend of school could read a PIQ and not know the name behind it and recognize you through that. So you want it to be very, very detailed. Again, think about it as an interview, right? The admissions, they want you to be open. They want you to reflect on your experiences and be able to express yourself. That is really the hardest part about writing the PIQs, is using those I statements, being vulnerable, talking about experiences that you've had. And so again, it is just a very straightforward interview style of writing. It's nothing fancy. It is just one part, but it's a really big part of the context of your application. So again, we want to make sure that you give as much detail as possible so that you feel like the UC admissions team knows who you are, right? And again, like on the flip side of that, the essays are more, more lavish, using the fancy words and yeah. So that's the thing that you want to consider. All right, so the response structure for the essays is, again, you want to have details. So you want to consider the 6 W's. Who, what, when, why, where, how did it happen, right? So you want to give context. You don't want your PIQ to start out with a statement like the sun, say you're writing PIQ about playing soccer, the sun was shining down on the field, it was a beautiful day, the wind was blowing, at this perfect speed. You don't want to talk about that, right? Totally no context about you. That doesn't talk about who you are. You want to get right to it. I started soccer freshman year and I wasn't sure if I would be able to do it, right? Again, you want to just start out. You don't need a hook. You don't need a quote. They don't like any of that stuff. No fluff, right? You're just going to answer it directly as if someone was sitting across the table from you, just asking you the question, okay? And then you want to reflect on it. So again, you need to know not only like, I worked really hard on the soccer team and then I eventually became the captain through a lot of hard work and dedication. Like, that's all great. Those are great details, but why is that significant? What did you learn from it, right? Did it make you better at communication? Did it make you better at time management to be able to practice your sport? Like, what did you actually get out of the experience, and not just listing all the details or all the things, but reflecting on them emotionally, again, which is usually the hardest part of the essay. All right, so how do you share your story? And what do we mean by story, okay? So we want to hear what's authentic. We don't want to hear what you think the UC reps want to hear or what you think Berkeley is going to like to hear. It's really not what that is about. They want to hear your story and what makes you unique, what makes you the student that you are. And that's going to be very unique to you. That's going to be a story nobody else can write. And so again, that's why we want you to be vulnerable and really think about your own personal experiences, because they do want that authenticity. They don't want you to just go to a counselor and be like, oh, is this good? Is this what's going to get me in? Like, no, you want to share your story because the college is going to decide if they think that you're a good fit for the school, right? And so it's not personal. It's really they're trying to make sure that you as a student are a good fit for their school and vice versa. So again, that's why you want to be your authentic self, and those results will play themselves out, right? So here's a good example of how students can share their story. We have the fabulous example of the biology ballerina. Okay, so this ballerina talks about, she takes on the subject, what academic subject most interests you, right? And where does that interest come from? So that's what she's thinking about in this PIQ. So you want to think about, okay, I'm really interested in biology, and how does that relate to my life? Or maybe how did I get interested in that subject? And so again, these statements really show again how we're connecting her experience doing an extracurricular like ballerina and how that connects to her interest in biology, which are two things you wouldn't normally put together. And so that's a really cool thing too, to draw allusions between what experiences you have versus where you're going as well. So statements like, my interest in the human body started with dance and continued in high school with courses like human anatomy. Biology allows me to make sense of the inner workings of my body on stage and off stage. It fuels my determination to expand my understanding of dance. So again, she's talking about what she's gaining from taking a course like human anatomy, and understanding her body more also fuels wanting to understand dance more, so it's kind of, a really interesting comparison there that is genuine and authentic to her. All right, so here's the full PIQ, and I really like this PIQ, so I want to read it to you guys. So the PIQ example was, what is the academic subject that inspires you? All right, and here is this person's response. As a young ballerina, I used to observe the older dancers' feet and wonder how their entire body weight could be supported by the tips of their toes. I was unknowingly memorizing the anatomy that allowed me to perform on stage. My interest in the human body started with dance and continued in high school with courses like human anatomy. I was able to build upon the knowledge I had in dance class after years of ballet to support my classroom assignments. I began to understand the different muscles, bones, and organs that compose the body, and also how their structure defines their functions. The more I learned about the body, the more questions I craved to have answers. Like point shoes supporting the dance, what other creations or technology can we combine to enhance a dancer's performance? Biology allows me to make sense of the inner workings of my body on stage and off stage. It fuels my determination to expand my understanding of dance. So, I mean, I feel like that's pretty impressive. Do they share a clear point of or two of new information, right? Are they sharing new information about themselves? Is there insight into the student's major or career path? Now, reading that, would you be able to kind of maybe find out or figure out what that person might be interested in for a potential career? So again, that person is giving a lot of detail into not only their academics with biology and taking a human anatomy class and understanding things there, but also using that knowledge in an extracurricular way through ballet, and giving examples of how each fuels the other. And that's just showing the quality of how driven this student is. So again, I really think an excellent response to that particular PIQ. All right, so some PIQ tips. This is directly from the UC. Okay, so this is directly from them. We didn't make this up. This is what they want from you guys. Students should talk about themselves. I mean, we've been kind of saying that the whole time, right? Talk about yourself, highlight who you are, use I and my statements. Start out saying, I did this. That's, a lot of students don't think that's okay to do, again, because you're not used to starting an essay that way in your English classes. But again, this is a very different type of writing. We're starting with I and my statements. Select prompts that are most relevant to you. That's why we have you write down the ideas and then fit them to the prompts. Right? It's not about choosing a specific prompt because they're all equal weighted in value. You're just going to fit them to the ideas you already have that are describing those 4 quadrants of who you are. Proofread and edit and seek feedback. College and Career Center, baby. That's what we're here for senior year for you guys. Come and get editing from us. Also, you can have your teachers read, your counselor, but College and Career Center is a really, really great place to get some feedback and to get some proofreading and edit help. Your experiences should be personal to you, right? And it's okay to be vulnerable in those questions. Share what you feel comfortable with, and only that much, right? But if you want to be vulnerable and you feel comfortable speaking personally about an experience or two, go for that, right? The UCs want to know who you are. They want to know the deepest core of you, right? To make sure that you're a perfect fit for the next 4 years with them. Use your own words. Be honest and truthful. So many times when we're trying to impress people, we think we need to use other people's words or fancier words, or but no, this is not what that's about. That the point is really to get to know you, okay? And so adding all those details about yourself and making it about you is what's going to be the most efficient. You don't want to feel like you have to use every word. Like I just said, don't aim for the 350. You don't need it. 250 to 350, anywhere in there, you're good. Focus on the content. You don't need to feel like you have to write about a hardship or COVID or anything specific to that. I think a lot of people feel like, oh, well, I should talk about how difficult COVID was, or I have to have a challenge. I have to have gone through something terrible to be considered. No, that's not the case. It's like if something related to COVID had severely impacted you, then go ahead and write about that. But you don't need to unless you have a very specific story or reason for that. Okay. You can use the additional comments section to discuss anything else about you that you weren't able to put in the PIQs. So again, don't feel like you need to talk about a lot of different topics. You want to make sure you're picking 4 main quadrants of who you are and answering those PIQs, and then they will ask you if you have any additional comments. And say you didn't mention a certain activity that you did or how it impacted you, you can always add that as an additional comment to the application. So there's plenty of space, but again, you want to be to the point and let them know exactly. They read a lot of applications too, and that's the reason that we don't want all the flowery language, right? They want to get to know the student. That is the primary reason that they're here. You don't want to talk about a specific campus. Again, do not write a PIQ that talks about how much you really want to go to Berkeley or UCLA, because all of the UCs are going to see all of your PIQ responses. But you can talk about the importance of the UC system or why you are drawn to the UC system over other systems. Okay, that's important. But again, you don't want to target one specific campus or play favorites in any way, because you are really applying to the entire University of California as a whole.
All right, so when we send you the presentation from today, it has this link to a longer presentation about the PIQs and personal statements with other examples besides the biology ballerina one, and some more like do's and don'ts. So you can look at that on your own time. But right now we want to take about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes for you to do a little more writing. So the writing that you started earlier, we want you to start expanding and start turning that into a paragraph or two. So we want you to go away from today like having a little bit of writing done and feeling confident that you can go off over the summer and work on your drafts for your PIQs and your personal statement. So we're gonna take 8 minutes to do a little writing. And if you have any questions right now that you want to ask, just go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm not sure if the timer was still counting that whole time because I was on another screen. We have about 4 minutes left of writing time, everybody. So not 7. Oh, I could have just moved it. Ugh. Now we're down to 3 minutes. We'll go here. Okay. All right, about 1 more minute. All right, so hopefully you got a little bit of writing done to get you started for the work that you can keep doing on it this summer. We're going to go over a timeline, next steps, some other tips as we wrap up here. So first is just a quick little question. So if you're not on the Nearpod, it'd be great if you can join the Nearpod so you can participate here. So go ahead, for those of you in the Nearpod, what are your plans for this summer? And I'll put this in the chat for those not on it yet. No, it doesn't. I don't think it makes sense. And so this answer will only go to me and Miss Mattie. So, you know, we're not showing it to everyone. So go ahead and put what your plans are for the summer. I see some people taking some trips, others volunteering, maybe working on their sports or extracurriculars, working on college apps, college tours. Great. So the main reason why we're asking this question is because we want you to do something meaningful over the summer and not just, you know, stay home and watch TV all summer. So definitely you want to take downtime, you want to relax, but you also want to make sure you're traveling or spending time with family or working on your college apps or taking a college class or volunteering, you know, playing sports, whatever it is that you like to do, but also something meaningful because that can add to your college application, but also just, you know, for yourself to gain some more skills, some experiences, right? So I'm gonna move on, but you can always come back to the, or you can always let us know later. All right, so next steps this summer, continue working on your brag sheet, your list of activities and awards, or work on it if you haven't started yet. Work on your list of schools. So use a tracking sheet. And again, remember earlier, like we were showing it to you, but there was also that tab that had links to other ones. Whatever tracking sheet works for you, please use a tracking sheet. Visit colleges in person or virtually on our website. We do have a lot of links where you can, but a lot of times you can also just go to the school's website and they have links to their virtual tours. Some of them are live where they'll do a live virtual tour. So there'll actually be someone on their campus walking around showing it to you, you know, in real time on Zoom. Other time, or maybe like a Zoom info session. Other times it's going to be pre-recorded. Either way, it still gives you a good idea about what their campus is like. So if you can't get to the schools, you can't travel, do it virtually. And then write drafts of your personal statements and PIQs. Save the date. Thursday, August 3rd is the bootcamp part 2. You're going to bring drafts of your personal statement and or your PIQs for review. So if you're going to be applying to private schools, we do recommend having your personal statement ready. But if you're also applying to UCs and you want to do your PIQs first, that's fine. If you're only doing UCs or whatnot, right? So, so we want you to have your drafts ready for August 3rd because we will be here and we're going to have a few other people with us to review your drafts and give you feedback. We also are going to do a step-by-step through the applications. So we gave you a little bit of information about the applications earlier, what you need, what goes into them. So you're going to actually work on your application because it'll be after August 1st when the UC application is open and the common application is open. So you can actually get in and work on it. So you will need to know your social security number if you have one. You'll need your personal email. You know, you'll need all that information we talked about earlier. And you'll be able to sit down and start your application. So in August, you're going to start your UC app and your Common App. In September, you're going to ask for letters of recommendation if applicable, or even in August, and you're going to continue working on your applications. In October, you're going to start your CSU application. In October, you can also submit your CSU and UC app if you're ready. Otherwise, in November, you're going to submit those, and you're going to also submit any early action applications or early decision. December through February, you're going to submit any of those remaining private out-of-state applications. The more you get done sooner, the less stressed you'll be and the less you'll have to do while also worrying about your schoolwork. So the more you can get done over the summer and right away in August at our boot camp, the better off you'll be as you go into senior year. So we really, want you to have those drafts ready for that August 3rd boot camp. These are some links. So definitely go to the College and Career website for virtual. On our website, there's some information and links for some virtual workshops and webinars that are happening over the summer. We'll definitely update that for August and September. Tomorrow I'll update any other things I know about before I leave for summer. For college searching, these are a couple of good websites, The Big Future and californiacolleges.edu. We have other websites listed on our website that you can refer back to. For personal statement and PIQ help, here's a couple of good links. And this is a good site for free webinars, College Guidance Network. So they offer webinars. They're usually at 4:30 because it's offered nationally, so 4:30 is late enough here, but early enough for the East Coast. When we come back in August and in the fall, we will be offering workshops in the College and Career Center in the CCC. We offer them Trojan time, lunch, and after school. They will be starting in September. We will have a college fair. Oh, I'm not sure if it's the week of September. It should probably be the week of September 26th. It's the last week of September. It's College Awareness Week. We have family evening events, so you can come in with your families for Senior College Night, Thursday, September 7th, and then Cash for College Financial Aid Night, Thursday, October 26th, where we'll go over how to apply for financial aid and help you fill out the FAFSA for financial, or the California Dream App for financial aid. We also will have drop-in help, designated times during lunch after school, as well as some evening and weekend help. Okay, now is the time for more questions. So please let us know questions that you have. And we also recommend bookmarking the College and Career website so that you can easily access it anytime you want. And before we leave, we also do have a little post survey for you, so don't